The United States Vice President Mike Pence is expected to come under severe scrutiny from his Democratic rival Kamala Harris when the two meet in a much-anticipated debate in Salt Lake City in Utah later tonight. The head-to-head comes after President Donald Trump's positive COVID-19 diagnosis, which has affected a growing list of people linked to the White House. Pence has been leading the president's coronavirus task force, and whilst VP debates are generally regarded as second-tier acts to the main show, the level of interest shown in tonight's showdown is unlike any other.
The question is, Justice, radical left. Will you shut up, man? Listen,
Perhaps it was the chaotic first presidential debate that lacked substance, characterized by a president who ran roughshod over everyone, or the 210,000 Americans who have perished from COVID-19 and the economic peril it has wrought, or the beckoning Supreme Court fight to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg, or the ongoing conversations about race and justice in America. It's all on the table.
When we look at this election, there are some very clear differences. Donald Trump will never use the term Black Lives Matter. He will never say that. He will never say it. Why do you think they are trying to suppress and to make it difficult or to confuse black people around voting? And the answer is simple, because they know when we vote, things change. They know when we vote, we are powerful.
At least 20 people associated with President Trump have tested positive. The latest, senior advisor Stephen Miller, whose wife Katie is Mike Pence's communications director. She has since departed the debate venue as a precaution.
As the President likes to say, this is an all-hands-on-deck effort, and we'll continue to bring the full resources of the federal government to support your efforts in the Seattle area and across the state of Washington. And we'll get through this.
But gotten through it they've not, at least not yet, with 40,000 new cases and 361 deaths in just the last 24 hours. As the Commission on Presidential Debates approved the use of plexiglass as an extra preventative measure between debaters, given the high risk posed by the Vice President's team.
When the President told me he was headed back to the White House, he told me to head to Utah. And we're looking very much forward to the Vice Presidential debate. The stakes in this election have never been higher. The choice has never been clearer. And I look forward to the opportunity to take our case to the American people for 4 more years for President Donald Trump in the White House.
Latest polling shows a massive deficit for the Trump-Pence ticket to make up against Biden-Harris, with the California senator expected to press their advantage, particularly around health care amidst a pandemic.
Complications from COVID-19, like lung scarring and heart damage, could well become the next pre-existing condition. In short, there are few things they could do that would be more offensive to the legacy and the life of Justice Ginsburg than to return us to the full-scale policies of discrimination in health care toward the women of our country. But that's what overturning the Affordable Care Act will do. And overturning the Affordable Care Act is a way a nominee gets the support of this president and his party.
And with both presidential nominees in their 70s, the issue of succession will also be front and center. Kamala Harris will become just the third woman to enter the VP debate arena since this format was adopted some 44 years ago in 1976. The previous two were Geraldine Ferraro in 1984 and Sarah Palin in 2008. Kamala Harris, though, does become the first Black and South Asian American female to have accomplished this feat. History aside, though, this will be a debate about substance, where her opponent has one main goal: to reframe this campaign so that they regain some ascendancy some 27 days out from Election Day. Sherwin Bryce-Pease, SABC News, New York.
Well, let's join Sherwin Bryce-Pease from New York to talk us through the final hours before this much anticipated debate between Kamala Harris and Mike Pence. Sherwin, I guess Americans are starting to settle and get ready for this debate and anticipated, because it's the first opportunity perhaps to see what the Democrats and the Republicans have to offer without a lot of drama.
Well, generally the focus is on the top of the ticket. The three presidential debates are the ones that people really tune into, and the vice presidential debate, the single vice presidential debate every 4 years, is pretty much a sideshow. What we are seeing this year, Peter, is renewed interest in the VP debate, because I feel people are not satisfied from what they got in the first debate, the dumpster fire, the chaotic debate that it's come to be known as, that in Cleveland, Ohio, on Tuesday last week. And what we are seeing now is, there's the historic nature of Kamala Harris's candidacy, being the first African-American of South Asian descent to participate in a vice presidential debate, a female at that. But then also there's the political moment that we are grappling with in the United States, a president that is infected, a coronavirus death toll that is out of control, the number of infections even more so. And so really a poignant moment here where the country is really seeking direction from their leaders and feeling very dissatisfied with what they got out of the first debate. And speaking to that, a lot of people ask me, so what's the real role and what value do these VP debates and VPs in general bring to the electoral campaign? Let's listen to what Professor Joel K. Goldstein of St. Louis University, a professor of law emeritus in Missouri, had to say about the role VP candidates play at this point in the race. Watch.
All right, so it looks like we don't have that clip just at the moment, but he did talk about 3 points. I'm hoping that we'll be able to play it, but maybe you can just take us through very briefly what those 3 points he was going to mention are.
Will do, Peter. Vice presidential candidates, he says, really perform 3 sorts of rhetorical roles, or 3 ways in which they contribute to the democratic discussion of campaigns. They tend to sound the themes of their ticket, of their campaign, so they're there as a mouthpiece to really bolster the argument coming from the top. So Mike Pence will talk up Donald Trump and Kamala Harris will talk up Joe Biden, because this is their race to win, essentially. Other than the presidential candidates, vice presidential candidates have really one of the most powerful microphones. You become the top surrogate for the top of the ticket. And so part of what they do is really to echo the themes of the presidential candidate and the campaign. Secondly, they typically spend a lot of time explaining why the presidential candidate on their ticket is the best person to lead America through the next 4 years. We'll hear a lot about that tonight. And then the third characteristic, vice presidential candidate's role, is to attack the opposing ticket and to explain why its performance or its policies would not be in the United States' best interest. And I think that falls largely to Mike Pence tonight. Just given the poll numbers we have seen, Peter, the Trump campaign has lagged behind Joe Biden's campaign in terms of the numbers. Just this week, 2 polls giving double-digit leads to the Biden-Harris campaign. And critically, Quinnipiac University's poll came out earlier today, and the news is not positive for the Trump campaign, particularly in the must-win state of Florida, where Biden, according to this poll, and remember this is just a snapshot, Biden is up 11 points in Florida, 13 points in Pennsylvania, and 5 points in Iowa. Key swing states that must be won if the Republican ticket is to be successful on November 3rd. So what does that tell us about Mike Pence's role tonight? He has to be an attack dog. He has to land punches. And remember, the top of the ticket will be watching, while he convalesces at the White House. And so this, in many ways, is a performance for Donald Trump, who will be watching very closely, will be tweeting probably throughout the debate, will be tweeting thereafter. So Mike Pence has to land some punches so as to recalibrate the Trump campaign so so that they, get a bit of momentum. They rejig the ascendancy and can, run down the hill and gather some moss before Election Day, Peter.
All right, so he's in his boss's corner, and it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because his boss has been doing his own thing in a very different way to the traditional politics that Mike Pence has been used to his career. And the question now becomes, what can he do to perhaps, I wouldn't say distance himself, but certainly become his own man in a way, and at the same time support his candidate?
Well, I don't think Mike Pence can forge a path for himself through this, where he either disassociates himself from what's been happening over the last 3.5 years. He, in many ways, has been the chief enabler of President Donald Trump. He's a chief cheerleader, and Goldstein in that piece that we hope to play for you speaks to that you become the top surrogate for the top of the ticket, and I think you'll hear more from that. I don't know if Mike Pence has ambitions to be the top of the ticket one day. Right now, his focus is really to turn the ship around as best he can. Remember, Mike Pence is a mild-mannered politician, a former governor from Indiana and a former congressman with great conservative credentials. He really has been thrown into the deep end in terms of having to recalibrate the way he would like to communicate a political message, given who he's representing at the top of this ticket. But remember, in addition to that, Mike Pence has his own record to defend here as the head of the White House coronavirus task force. And what many view, certainly the analysis, is that it has been a failure by and large, given the numbers we are seeing in the United States. 210,000 dead, over 7 million infected. And so Kamala Harris is going to punch away at Mike Pence's role in this coronavirus task force. And the fact that the White House itself has become an epicenter in Washington, D.C., one of the epicenters in the United States, a hotspot where some 20 people that we know of to date, Peter, and a list that is growing every day, contracting the coronavirus by virtue of their association with the White House or the first couple, including President Donald Trump. So he is, as much as he has a role to play in terms of attack tonight, he will also find himself a bit on the back foot as he has to defend what this administration has done in terms of the public health protocols, wearing a mask, social distancing. It is the Trump campaign that has allowed in campaign events where they've allowed hundreds of people in their campaign events not wearing masks, where there's been no social distancing. So it comes as no surprise that President Trump contracted the coronavirus. There are even questions about whether Mike Pence has contracted the coronavirus. To date, his tests have come back negative, but as we know, negative today doesn't mean negative tomorrow. So a lot of questions, and that's why we'll have plexiglass on stage between Kamala Harris and Mike Pence tonight, Peter.